Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Wednesday, the Leading Change episode this week with Robert Briese. Hey Robert, welcome back.
Thanks Vasco, happy to be here.
So Robert, Wednesdays is of course the change leadership, I prefer to call it that way, change leadership episode. And we want to hear a story of a change process you were involved with and walk us through the steps, like, the things that were done at each of those steps. And as you go, highlight for us the tools, the tips, the tricks, the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the organizational change story that I want to tell you is related to the example that I already gave yesterday about the e-commerce platform that was built by a German big software company that I was working around like 7 years ago, they had this kind of challenge of a very fixed timeline, a milestone that was non-movable because it was a conference with 30,000 people where the chief marketing officer was supposed to show this e-commerce platform built on a new product that they just bought and integrated into their product lists. So they had a fixed budget, a fixed timeline, and they were like kind of focusing on a fixed scope, which I managed to make them understand that they need to be very flexible on that in order to achieve something and to show something at this fixed timeline. The first organizational change that I introduced was moving from single functional teams, like a testing team, a design team, a kind of like a ERP team, a team that was responsible for the ERP platform, the enterprise resource platform, and so on. So moving from single functional teams to cross-functional teams. And I helped them restructure the teams in so-called feature teams. There are different names for that. I think in team topologies, it's called stream-aligned value teams. But the idea is that those are like end-to-end teams that have all cross-functionality within their teams, and they can work on different parts of the product and deliver end-to-end features. And this kind of change was quite easy because everyone in the organization, the management, understood that having single functional teams leads to a lot of handovers, bottlenecks, and problems within that needs to be orchestrated within a large organization. So at that time, that was not such a big challenge because we discussed how to do it. Still, right now, I would do a different approach than the one that I did it back then. So what we did back then is kind of discuss with managers and with the Scrum Masters what would be a nice fit of what kind of functionality skills do we need, what kind of component skills do we need, and then we put people with design skills, with testing skills, with knowledge in different parts of the system like ERP, CRM, and the front-end development, back-end development, everything within the different teams. And we build these teams and ask basically the teams if they have any issues with this kind of setup, and then we moved into this new organizational design. Nowadays, I would rather go into self-designing teams and ask actually the teams themselves to group based on the needed skills and component knowledge that is needed.
So you moved to cross-functional teams, right? Like we still have that very difficult challenge, meeting a deadline with a fixed time, fixed budget, of course, because it's software. It's not so easy to change the budget because you need to hire more people. And of course,
and even that might not help.
And even that might
line,
not help,
right?
as Frederick Brooks already wrote in the
right.
60s. So, what happened next? So you moved to cross-functional teams. What came next?
So what came next is the situation that I mentioned yesterday in the talk about having team product owners on team level. They all had their own team backlogs with their agenda of the products that have to be integrated into to the e-commerce platform. And I realized, wait a second, this will never work. If everyone, like every so-called product owner, tries to get his products integrated in this e-commerce platform, how do we ensure that we have a nice customer end-to-end experience? How to ensure that everything works nicely end-to-end, not only on, let's say, one product level, but that we get in time all the needed steps that we can show the platform as a whole, from sprint to sprint. And if we don't manage to get all the scope that is in by the timeline works seamlessly, works nice. And for me, it was clear that the only way to do that is to get one product backlog prioritized by someone. It could be everyone, all these so-called product owners, or it could be one person that is in charge. And I like to call this the product owner instead of how it's often called a chief product owner, because again, for me, this team product owners don't own an actual product, but maybe a component or part of the product. So that was the biggest challenge that I bet
that was hard to do. Like I'm imagining all kinds of resistance and product owners saying, "Hey, what's my job now?"
Exactly.
So how did you manage that change?
Yeah, so I talked a bit about this yesterday. So what I introduced is weekly alignment in 2 meetings every week, talking about the full scope within kind of a user story mapping framework, so we could visualize all the items that needs to be delivered, and I ask each of this so-called team product owner what were the items that they think they have refined and they think they need to be part of this e-commerce platform. And then I asked them to come up with the actual priority. What is what's the most important? And let's make a list from 1 to 100 within all these items. And this got, to a lot of fights and a lot of, heated discussions. And the only way to solve this that I found out that worked was actually, to escalate it to the head of marketing. This person then actually appointed one person as the product owner, who then, was at the end making these decisions. So we got the change to have only one product backlog for all the teams because it was ordered. We had an ordered list, and we had one product owner for the whole product. Basically, what it says that you should have in Scrum. Like when you look at the Scrum guide, this is what, if you have one product, you should have one product owner and one product backlog. And this is what we got. But this led, of course, to a challenging situation in the organization for this so-called team product owners, who realized that they are not, owning kind of a part of the product in that sense that they were thinking of owning it, because there was now someone above them that was changing the priorities or making sure that, no, this is not priority number one. So it might be for your perspective, but in the whole backlog, it's priority number 35. And we only want to tackle this in like 3 sprints from now, because we have some more important things. So your team should be taking other more important work, so that we are sure that this type of work, like this thing is getting done as soon as possible. And then we can deal with this kind of work.
So one of the things that comes to my mind related to this change is, of course, that there is insecurity implicit in this change of hierarchy, right? Because you just instituted some sort of hierarchy where there was none, because the product owners were working on their own. How did they react to that? And from the perspective of a change management, what are some of the tips you can share for us who need to work with that? Because, changes in hierarchy will come up, and, organizational changes are just a fact of life anyway, especially if you adopt Agile in a place where there wasn't, or less, or Scrum, or Kanban, whatever that is. So how did you tackle specifically that aspect of the change of hierarchy within the group of product owners?
So one thing was to really get a clear understanding why having local optimization can lead to sub-optimization on a global level. So focusing on, one team specifically working only on parts of the product, but those not being the most important one, would then, create a lot of dysfunction on the whole system level. I try to work with things like system thinking, like system modeling, to introduce system thinking and create the bigger understanding of let's focus on the whole system. What are we trying to optimize, and how multiple backlogs, introduce problems on not working on the most valuable items automatically, or not working on the most important things from one product product perspective. So that was one thing that I'd like to work with, and suggest to always try give people a framework to digest more complex topics on a system level. And system modeling with Causal Loop Diagram allows you to think for yourself. You give variables like multiple backlogs, number of backlogs, number of product owners. How does it influence the adaptability or working on the highest item from customer perspective or business perspective? This is one thing that I like to use, because then I'm not telling, those people that, what they're like, the current working model is not optimal. It's never about wrong or bad or so on, but not optimal for what we are trying to achieve. How well does it optimize the way of current working for what we want to achieve, or how not good does it do that, right? So yeah, I think this is one of the major tools that I'm trying to work with, so that people own this idea about how the system should be set up in order to work to achieve a specific goal. Yeah,
absolutely. Always work with the goal in mind. Thank you for sharing that story, Robert.
Very welcome.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.